Multiple sources are reporting that Ukrainian Special Forces troops have crossed the Dnipro into Kherson. Are they here to stay, or is this just another high-stakes raid? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. We are going to be breaking it all down, what we know and what we still need to determine. It's October 19th, 2023. Let's get into it. Okay, taking a look first at the combat map, or the control map, excuse me. There's just some minor clarifications within the front lines. Looking at one of the heaviest combat areas outside of Avdiivka, you can see here that the area where Russian forces are operating around Krasnohorivka, they're assessing it, scaling it back, likely a function of the fact that Russia is pulling back and drawing down its previous high-intensity combat operations in the area. Again, a sign that likely Ukrainian defensive efforts have been successful. The only other noteworthy shift is near Orlyanka. You can see here Russian forces advancing down a tree line. This is putting them knocking at the door of Ivanivka, which is noteworthy because we haven't seen any urban area of any kind change hands, but it looks like the 47th Tank Division of the Russian Armed Forces appears to be at least pushing towards this small village. And while it doesn't necessarily portend any great, terrible breakthrough, it would represent one of the closest that we've seen Russia come to actually retaking any village of any size in at least 4 months. So moving over to the combat map, you can see Ukrainian troops report, or Ukrainian Armed Forces reporting Russia launching 64 combat engagements, notably a large number, occurring here in the northern front, where you're seeing a significant number of attacks, but spread across this entire Kharkiv front, probably a fixing or probing operation. Of course, lots of concentration in and around Avdiivka, but notably, you're not seeing attacks launched from these flanks, these prongs where Russia really hoped to commit its encirclement. Other than that, standard fixing attacks across the front lines. Now, here's where things get kind of interesting. First, war mappers out here reporting that in Kupiansk, Ukrainian forces have actually advanced somewhat unexpectedly, knocking on the gates of Lyman Peri. And this is noteworthy simply because this isn't a location where anyone has acknowledged that there's been any sort of substantive fighting for some time. And when we zoom in here, you can see it's in the north here. And this isn't even a contested spot for Russian or Ukrainian troops. So to see them push this hard, you can see Lyman Peri is ensconced in this heavily wooded area, so likely something that's crowding out a lot of use of heavy equipment, heavy tanks. Again, they're going to be pretty constrained, and this also provides some cover from drones. So this may be a tough nut to crack as the attacker. You can see Russian forces launching at least what appears to be some sort of counterattack. So it remains to be seen if War Mapper is fully tracking on this, or if it's going to be just another kind of punch in, punch out type situation. Anyway, if you're interested in seeing some of the combat footage, because hopefully we're going to check in a couple of hours, I'm going to be doing the latest combat footage on analysis on Combat Vet News. You guys know YouTube won't let me show any kind of combat footage on here anymore. So I've moved all that analysis to Combat Vet News. It's also the best way to support me. You know, I've had to deal with YouTube's demonetization, Russian hackers on the platform, all sorts of stuff. And so I launched my own site to at least insulate myself from some of the other BS that tries to basically silence my reporting. So if you're interested in supporting me, it would mean a ton. Thanks to any one of these tiers gets you access to the twice weekly members only content. I can't even show you the thumbnails because I'll get demonetized, but it's the viral combat footage. You know what I'm talking about. We do the deep dive analysis into gear, tactics, location, units, as much as we can do. And if we can get some footage from this raid across the Dnipro, we are definitely going to be taking a look at that. Otherwise, I'm sure we will be seeing even more fallout from the Russian failed offensive in Avdiivka. And if we're lucky, maybe even some footage from the missile strike in Berdyansk that happened recently. So check us out, combatvetnews.com. All right, let's talk about what you guys came here for, the raid across the Dnipro. Now, here's the Kiev Post talking about it, reporting that Ukrainian Marines, Ukrainian Marine Special Forces, crossing the Dnipro River and digging in, according to some reports. This is, again, a Russian mill blogger who's talking about this, likely Ukrainian OPSEC, Operational Security, dictated that they would not be publicly acknowledging this plan. But the rumor is that 2 Ukrainian brigades, what they're calling assault groups, so that's approximately company-sized elements, right? So half a battalion, which is pretty significant, several hundred troops, captured 2 villages 3 to 4 kilometers inland. But the strength is unclear, and if it's going to be a permanent bridgehead versus a raid is not yet established. The brigades, according to these accounts, are in Poima and Pristyanka. So let's see if we can dig those up real quick on the map. Pulling it up here. So it supposedly is on one of the destroyed bridge crossings. I guess it would help if we did this in English, so I have at least a marginal chance of reading it. Let's see if we can find this here. It doesn't look like the spelling is exactly the same. Let's see. Kiva. Okay, let's see. This is usually pretty good about this sort of thing. Anything? What do you got for us? There you go. All right, here's where it looks like. Oh, and here's Poima. So this is pretty significant, right? If indeed this is true, it would mean that Ukrainian troops would potentially be operating in one of the this would be one of the most significant flips, especially a single day change of territory that we've seen in the conflict if Ukraine crucially can bring in troops to facilitate this river crossing. It's described in the Kiev Post, and I'm inclined to agree with it, as a high-risk, high-reward operation. Ukrainian Special Forces, right, occupying this area. Bear in mind, it's defended by what are supposedly some pretty poorly manned troops. This is supposedly a lot of the better troops defending this Kherson area were diverted into the fighting in Robotyne, leaving some poorly trained conscripts. And supposedly this paired with the fact that Ukrainian long-range artillery can actually give these troops some standoff distance means that there's actually a fair chance that Ukrainian troops can dig in here and hopefully hold out long enough to allow additional reinforcements to come across the bridge. That's the question here that needs to happen. They need to establish a pontoon bridge, right? Because remember, once you're in these positions and you're fighting, your ammunition diminishes, your water diminishes, your food diminishes. You need to establish the ability to get all of those things in. And right now, without a pontoon bridge, without a repair of the existing rail bridge, or even just a really, really robust ferry system, the Ukrainians are going to have their work cut out for them. So right now, it may just be a take it, hold it, make sure the Russians don't stay honest in their defense of this area. But 2 companies, several hundred people is a big assault group to just play games, right? To just be screwing around. So I would not be shocked if Ukraine really tried to make this happen. I think these kind of bold operations are actually probably the way to go in this conflict at this point. We can sort of suspect, you can see here's the destroyed rail bridge across the river. But it's, again, we'll wait to see in the next 12 to 24 hours what is actually happening and if these troops hold out or if it just becomes simply a raid. Anyway, guys, that's really all I had. The only other thing worth noting is that Russia's Lavrov, foreign minister, visited North Korea. And usually these state visits are seen as pretty big deals, very strong endorsements, and it's likely seen as confirmation that, yes, North Korea was indeed, or has been indeed, or is providing weapons and munitions to the Russians. Anyway, guys, that's all I had for you. Thank you so much to all the members of CombatVetNews.com, and we will see you guys over on CombatVetNews.com later today to check out the combat footage from this fighting. Anyway, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.